Hey, I had a guy named Lloyd reach out to me yesterday about talk about trim and ordering sheet metal, and so I was gonna go over that. I appreciate the suggestion. So I when I build my buildings, I build them on paper, just like I'm gonna build them on the job site. I don't ask the steel yard to design them for me, because when they deliver it, I want to know where every piece goes, and I look back on my paperwork and I can tell where everything goes, because I'll kind of do an overall design, just a real quick sketch, and sometimes I'll put everything on one page depending on the size of the building, but sometimes I'll break it down into each individual. I have a sheet for one end wall, sheet for the other, one side wall, the other side wall, and then one for the roof. But that's the best way to do it. You can figure all your pop rivets, screws, weld plates, everything that you're going to need. Then you can, once you have all that, you combine everything. I always get the steel yard to email me a list of the materials that I need with the prices on them, so that as I'm figuring all that, I can write the price down in parentheses next to, if I need some 8-inch purlin, I got the price on it times however many pieces that I need, the length of them, and it just helps me to figure the price of everything up. And you can go back once you do get your steel. If it's a big building, sometimes you forget, what did I get for here or there, but you can always refer back to that if you keep it in a file folder with the job name on it. But Lloyd's question was about ordering sheet metal for the end wall, and the best way I can describe or explain it is, if you've got an end wall like this, and I know that's steeper than a 2 and 12, but I'm going to call it on a 2 and 12 just for round numbers. But for those of you that don't know, again, these videos are not for people that have been doing it all their lives. Some people are just getting started, and I encourage you to get out there. There's so much work. Hell, if you just answer the phone these days, you're going to get the job more than likely, just for answering the phone. But it's a good business to be in, especially if you, I'm more of a quality over quantity. I just do one job at a time. I just found that you can't make everybody happy trying to do more than one job. But if you're good enough, they'll wait on you. So it's been good for us. Other thing too is that we do, or that I do, I'm a one-stop shop. I prefer to do a turnkey job. Now I don't do it all. I have guys that do all that, but it's a pretty good deal when you can offer the customer, hey, if you're just gonna have to deal with me, not 6 or 7 different people. Now, you're just starting out, you don't know a lot of people, the plumbers, electricians, concrete guys. It's going to take you a while to go through them. But also, I would say this to the new people or guys that are just starting: do not let a guy that's been around for a long time try to talk you into something. If you if you know what you want or how you want it done, and I'm not saying you don't listen to them and take some advice, but don't let them screw up your vision. If you've got, you got a certain way of doing things. Hopefully it's the best way, and they're just trying to get it the easy way. That's what I'm getting at, is don't settle for easy way, because it'll make a difference in the quality, and word gets out and you'll be busy. But anyhow, so on a 2 and 12 pitch, that means for every foot of rise, you're gaining 2 inches. So if you start down here and let's say your sidewall is 12 foot here, then your sheet for easy figuring, I always figure 3 foot. Now, if you use PBR sheets, which that's all I use anymore for the walls, the roof, and everything, they're actually a little bit wider than that, but you can figure 3 foot, 36 inches is fine. So if you draw a straight line across there at 12 feet, and I know it looks more than what it is, but if you order a sheet at 12 foot, well, you're going to be way short, because on 3 feet, it's rising 6 inches. 2 times 3 is 6. Remember, for every foot of rise, you're going up 2 inches. So 1 foot, 2 inches, 2 foot, 4 inches, 3 foot, 6 inches, and so on. So if you order this first sheet at 12.6, Lloyd's question was, how do you do it with minimal waste? Well, that's going to be the minimal waste there, but the other thing you got to consider is your sheeting ledge. You're going to lose 1.5 inches. Most tin lips sheeting ledges are 1.5 inches. So now you're down 1.5 inches here. So you're actually 12 foot 1.5 inches to your eave, which means if you did order that at 12.6, it's probably going to work because your rake trim is going to cover it up anyways, and that's okay. But if you want to really cover your, and it's easy too for figuring, if you just go 12.6. So this first sheet, we'll call this number 1, would be 12 foot 6 inches, and then your next sheet, in order for it to work, is going to have to be 6 inches taller than that. Number 2 is going to be 13 foot 0 inches. And if you want to get technical about it, I guess you could go 12 foot 7.5, and that puts you right up there at the top. But it's okay to be a little bit short. Most of the times, for what I call a rake angle, on your rafter here, some people use base angle. I prefer square tubing. So if you're using say a 12-inch 19-pound beam for a rafter, you can get by with a 2-inch square tubing for a rake to screw your sheets to, because you're going to have well, let's just say this, if you got a 12 foot eave, you're going to have a purlin at 4 foot, 8 foot, and then 12 foot. And as these sheets go up, you're going to have this purlin to screw to and this purlin. And some people use a base angle on the very bottom. I prefer to use a purlin, because 9 times out of 10, the customer, once it gets done, they say, well, I want to put some plywood up here to hang stuff on, or I want to line it with sheet metal or whatever. If you just use a base angle down there, I know it's cheaper, but if you use the base angle, then you have to come back and add something to it. But if you use the same purlin that you use on the walls, then everything's flush all the way up. So you could turn a 4x8 sheet here, or an 8 foot tall PBR panel, or whatever they want to line it with. But that way it gives you something to screw to the whole way down. And we've done jobs here at the shop. You can run 2x4s, run them flat, screw them right into the purlin, but flat ways on 16-inch centers, and then go back with a nail gun and nail some T111 or something like that. If you're really wanting some meat behind there to hang stuff on. It also gives a good spot for the electricians to run stuff behind it before you cover it up, or air compressor. I prefer to run that kind of stuff up top. Like if you're gonna do that 8 foot, lay everything on that top purlin, because you could put like a 1x4 up there for a trim piece and nobody's ever going to see the conduit behind it, but it's accessible. If something was to ever happen, you can get to it. But anyways, back to the rake piece. You take that piece of 2-inch, and it doesn't have to come all the way, it doesn't have to be touching each other up there at the top, but and it may take 2 pieces, and it doesn't take a whole lot of welding. I mean, you need to make sure it's welded in there good, but you know, just use a 6011 and skip weld it all the way down, weld it on a little bit on the top flange there and a few places down here just so it doesn't break over, and that's where you're going to have your sheets. But we've got a Swenson shear that if you're just starting out, they're expensive, but I want to say they're around $1,000 or so maybe. The new ones, you can get different configurations, R panel, U panel, which we mainly deal with R panel or PBR panel, but they've got one that cuts 90 degrees, and that's really nice if you've got a door opening here and you got to cut this. You can cross cut this piece right here with that shear. It's just like a big paper cutter, and then you can rip it with rip the long end of it with some cordless shears. We don't have anything corded much anymore, but I will say this: sometimes if you're cutting that panel out and on the face side of it, you're right next to that high rib or something, and if you try to cut it on the color side, you're just going to scratch it up. So flip that sheet over on some sawhorses and make sure you got an old shirt or some rags or something to lay that on. Don't put it on bare metal and get it all scratched up, but some old towels, but flip it over and mark that on the back side and do your cut on the back side where you're not going to mess that paint up when you flip it back over if it's on a tight spot like that, and try to get it as tight as you can. But anyhow, that's getting kind of off the subject. But as far as ordering the sheets to the minimal waste, if you order them right, like I say, you got a 12-foot sidewall on a 2 and 12 pitch. Now, if it's on a 3 and 12, it'd be 9 inches, and so on, because it's rising 3 inches for every foot. So this would be your first sheet starting out would not be 12 foot, it'd be 12/9, and then you're gonna cut that corner off with the shear, or however you do it with the saw or whatever. The shear is the nice way to do it. But that is something too, that when you're ordering the materials, you're gonna need, if you've built everything square and plumb and true, you're gonna need 2 of those for each side. So you're working your way up to the center. You got 12/6, 13, 13/6, 14, 14/6, all the way up to the peak. Now, and you may have one at the very top that kind of splits the center, and then you're going to be going back down. So when you order on your sheet, you're going to write 12/6 times 4, because you need both end walls are going to be the same. Now here's another thing that I do, where I order my sheet metal from. Long time ago when I was younger, I just ordered everything and we sorted it all out on the job. As you get older, you try to make better decisions on sending that stuff out. So I order my sheets in bundles, and so for instance, on this end wall, I would have two bundles. I would have this end wall is one bundle, so I would order this times 2 all the way up, and you had 12/6, and then 13 foot 0 times 2, 13 foot 6 times 2, 14 foot 0 times 2, all the way up until you get to that peak. And that would be, I would note that on the paper. That's bundle 1, or to the salesman. Bundle 2 is the exact same thing. So that way you're not having to sort out both sides of it just to get to one. They've got it all sorted for you pretty much when it comes in. Then I'll order my sidewall sheets, one bundle, and my roof sheets. I'll order this half on one bundle and this half on one bundle. That is if it's not if it's a 200 foot long building, I don't want that many sheets. About the most sheets I want is maybe 25 or 30 sheets to a bundle, because we'll pre-drill everything before we put them up. You're going to take measurements. Now, another thing too, you got to keep in mind when you're, and one of Lloyd's questions was about the trim. When you're ordering the trim, I miter my rake trim into my gutters. So if you got a 60 wide building, you can't just order 3 20-foot pieces, because that's going to be exactly 60 inches. Well, what I use is called a sculptured rake, and that sculptured rake looks like something like this, and it's got a hem on it. That's not a real good depiction, but anyways, we always run the rake first, and we'll let that rake trim hang off the end a foot or so, because we're going to cut some of that off when our gutter slides into it. That's so the rake trim's pretty easy to figure. If you got let's just say this is a 40 wide building and half of that's 20 foot. Well, there again, you can't just order the longest I can order is a 20 foot, or actually 20 foot 3. A 20 footer is not going to get you there. So you're going to have to order, say, a 10 and a 12. And we always put the bottom one on first and let it hang over a foot or two here, and then we'll lay the top one on, and we'll pop rivet those together and do the same thing over here. So now you've got your rake is hanging over the eave, and you're going to put the gutter, you're going to miter that gutter piece into it, and we use what they call a post-hung gutter instead of a pre-hung. The pre-hung is, for those of you who don't know, that it has a lip on it that goes down over the eave strut and the sheets. You'd have your sheet metal there and then your eave strut behind it. But you have to put that in first. I just use the post hung, which means after the fact. So it's just a lot easier, and it works just as good. You'll have your sheet coming down. We always allow 2 inches overhang. You got it when you're measuring for all that stuff. You got I think it's 1.25 inches. I always figure 1.5 inches for the sheet, plus 2 inches for the overhang. That's how much I want going into my gutter. So that post hung gutter has a lip on it, and it'll be broke. I'm going to exaggerate this lip. It'll be broke. The lip will be broke to the pitch, so that your sheet, when it comes down, it fits right up underneath your sheet, and you can run a lap screw in it, and then you got that 2 inches of overhang going into the gutter. The bottom comes out like this, and then the top has a lip, and that top's going to be slightly higher than the roof sheet because you'll have a gutter strap that goes on top and it slides under this lip here, and you have a lap screw going into that, and then we always put two lap screws in the gutter strap. But when you're, this would be almost a whole nother video to make, but if you do miter your gutters into it, if you're looking at the gutter from the side, you got this top piece would be here. Well, let me just draw it like this. You're looking at this side piece, you got that break right here, and then you got this top piece. Now, if your rake trim is square and plumb, and we always have somebody standing on the ground when we're putting that rake trim up that can look at and see if the reveal on it is running true. If this is the side of your building and you got that rake trim coming out like this, you want that gap, you want it to look symmetrical. You don't want it pulled in too much at the bottom or out at the top or whatever. It needs to be, the same. So, and if you can get it like that, if the high rib here works and you're not having to stretch that out, if you got to stretch it out too much, you're gonna have to special order a piece to cover that. But normally, in normal circumstances, you can come back 3/4 of an inch on this gutter piece. Come back 3/4 here and 3/4 here and cut that off. And that's a good start to slide into your gutter here, because this piece right here is going to slide into here and make where you're gonna have to. It's not quite as simple as that. You still, there's other, I can make a video on it. It's probably easier just to show you, but it's a lot nicer looking than corner boxes. So but he was also asking about trim as far as what to order and how much. That's just going to depend on how many windows and doors you have. I like to use on the ridge what they call a T1 ridge, which is more or less a flat ridge with a hem on each side. I think from stock material, it's 8 inches on each side. Sometimes if you're doing say a hay barn or something, you don't want to put any closures up there, or you're not going to insulate it. You want air to breathe, the hot air to get out of there, but you don't want water getting back in. We'll actually have them special order them and do a 12 inches, so it's got more coverage on it. We're not putting closures in it, but that's a long ways for rain to get back up in there. But it allows that hot air to get out. But again, on ordering the trim, you got to take the length of the building, and from where we get it, if you order a 12 or 14 or 16, it's always going to be plus 3 inches, 12 foot 3, 14 3, and you're just going to have to do the math on that. I will say this, another thing, I get those bundles made to make it easier on me, but also, in case people don't know this, you can get it costs $10 to get your own trim box, and all your trim's not mixed in with somebody else's trim. Then they got a sorted out when it gets to the yard. So I specify that I want my own trim in its own box. If it takes 2 boxes, 3 boxes, whatever the size of the building is, I want it all in my own box, not mixed with somebody else's. So it's worth $10 to not get my trim all scratched up, because everybody knows the trim's expensive. Anyways, I hope that answered your question. We put 6 screws. We put a screw next to every rib. Some guys do 3 screws, and that's fine. I just prefer the 6 screws. When we pre-drill everything, we use an 1/8 inch bit. And that's another thing, as far as when you go into, if you do decide to pre-drill everything, if you built it plumb and square and true, there's absolutely no reason you shouldn't pre-drill everything. Instead of running a chalk line or a level or something like that. But you've got to measure off of that tin lip for your centers of everything. And if you got a sag in a purlin or something, we'll take scrap wood and cut it to where it props that purlin up and everything's straight going down there. You may have a whole bunch of wood in there if you got standing everything up, but you want to make sure that you got that same, let's just say you measure 4 inches to the center of the purlin right next to the beam. Well, you need to check it in the middle of the bay and at the other end, and go on down the line and make sure there's no variances. And if there is, then you got to find a happy medium that'll work for the whole thing, and you write that measurement down. Then you go to your 8-footer and you do the same thing, and then of course your 12-footer. I always like to keep the top of my sheets about a 1/2 inch off of the, I don't want them coming all the way up to the top of the eave strut. I want a little bit of play, because that gutter is going to cover it anyways. You're never going to see it. But if you get it too close to the top, sometimes that high rib sticking out, especially in a steeper pitch building, will give you trouble because your sheet won't lay down on that. But I hope that helps, and I really appreciate the questions. It just makes it easier for me to talk about stuff, and if I didn't cover exactly what you wanted, Lloyd, just send me another message and I'll get back to you.